Hey everybody, Bryan back again for another walk and talk on this rather drizzly Friday afternoon. Feels great out here. Raindrops are coming down, so if one hits the lens, my apologies. I'm here at Hamilton Park, and the videos I've been releasing so far, I've been going all over the city, and I sometimes have to redo videos. Sometimes I'll shoot an entire 45-minute to a 60-minute video on a topic, and then as I go to upload it, I think about it and go, you know what, I'm not really happy with that one. So I'll trash it and try again. So sometimes I might go back to old places I've been before and not even remember, because I have shot video here before, but because of situations going on at the time, I just didn't like what I was doing. Maybe had an interaction or came across too many people in the public. So I'm pretty sure I have not released a video from this park. This place is located just down the street from the University of St. Francis, a place that I've done a video there for as well. Beautiful campus here in the southwest corner of Fort Wayne. I happen to be in the area here. Thought, hey, this is good weather to come to this park because there should be fewer people on the path. It's a rather small park, but it's packed with some goodies here. Over here to the right, there are some converted tennis courts into pickleball, 6 courts and a tennis court. Got baseball over here. This is for Wildcat Baseball, Little League, which is a big presence here in our city. Saw the playground where I started, and there's a pavilion over there I'll look at here in a bit. The path itself goes in kind of like a figure 8. This is the central path here. And it's going to take me to the big loop that goes around the park. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn left up here at the intersection. Take myself around where backside of the baseball diamonds are, come back around. Or if I'm up for it, I might head up to a secondary park nearby and show you what else is up there. It's kind of cool. So it's been a while since my last video. I think it's been over a week or so. It's given me time to think about what I've released so far and maybe delve into the history books a bit and think about other topics. Well, one that's come to mind here recently, it's been kind of an ongoing phenomenon really since the beginning of my transition from working in a factory to getting an education. It's this idea that my job attracts a certain amount of special praise, and you may have heard this before. In fact, I would bet a lot that you have. If you work as a teacher, any sort of child-based case management, child psychology, counseling, anything of that regard where you're working closely with children, you've probably received that familiar praise of, oh, thank you for what you're doing for these kids. It must be a very fulfilling job that you have. It's a very common sort of viewpoint. And it's accurate. I think it takes a special person to get into education of any sort. Doesn't mean they're better than people who don't. And that's really at the crux of this particular video today. The jobs that we choose, the ones that we tend to gravitate toward, reasons for doing so can come from a lot of different sort of factors, influences, and really lived experience. And as you know, I never fathered a child of my own. I can't remember the name of that acronym that they use to describe married couples that have no kids, so the presumption is there's a lot of money to go around, which just isn't true. But we've heard that one a few times, my wife and I. But anyways, the reference point I tend to use when I talk about history and job change is my 17 years or so in the factory realm. Very blue collar, of course. It was a great time for me. I liked several aspects of my job itself. It was an important job. It brought a lot of happiness to people. I was making a pleasure food in a very serious way. In fact, it's a business that, and this goes across all realms of food manufacturing, but it's a realm that absolutely requires and demands great analysis, concentration, making sure all your T's are crossed and I's are dotted, and because it's about public safety. You don't want to put food on the shelves that's not good for them, that's unsafe, that has different trying to think of the best word to use here, cross contaminants of allergens, things like that. You want to make sure that if the label says there's no peanuts in it, there are definitely no peanuts. Just things like that. So you want to make sure you're doing the best possible job you can for the safety of the public. So despite being very blue collar, getting dirty, covered in food and sometimes chemicals and the sweat of a hard-worked 12-hour shift, it's still a very important job. So I do think highly of those who get into, that sort of industry, that sort of realm of career. Because we tend to look past them when it concerns importance. We tend to look past our sanitation companies, the drivers of garbage trucks, the folks who work on our roads, the wide variety of get out there and get your hands dirty sort of work. So to transition from blue collar into more of a white collar realm gets more praise, but it's because the reference point is much more precious. When you deal with kids, it's a different ball game. It doesn't mean you're doing a more important job per se. It just means that people treat it as being more special than maybe it is. That might be the case. So I'm going to pause here for a second. Where I'm at is a very small park with a very nice pavilion, indoor pavilion for events, birthday parties and such. This is Franklin Park. That's what I'll call it, at least, because this used to be the old Franklin School. In fact, this archway here is the remnant of that old school. Big brick building, beautiful building. Years ago, my mom used to go here. This was a middle school. It was Franklin Middle School. And they took it all down, and rather than destroying the whole thing and leaving nothing, they decided, well, let's leave these arches and make kind of a little gathering park here for the neighborhood. That's nice. I like it. This is a splash pad. I have never seen it in operation. It may be the case that it's not in operation yet. I don't know. They got all the spigots for the fountains. Although it looks kind of, I don't know. I don't know if I like these step-up structures here. It seems like a kid could kind of trip over them, skin their knees and stuff, hurt their shins. But nevertheless, what we have over here are 3 other arches. These are the other entrances to the school, the front being this one here, And I believe there is a plaque that I want to examine over here. When I was just a wee little boy, my grandparents lived over on 4th Street, which is down that way. My grandma and I would walk all the way there, or from there to State Street down here, where there was an old drugstore and convenience store and department store, and get some lunch. We'd walk right past the school. My grandma would always tell me, you know, your mom used to go here in middle school. Yeah, Franklin School, 1921. The plaques over here from the Board of Education and architects, I believe. Let's look at this one. Yep, Board of Education. And then this one should be the architects. Yep, architects. It was very nice of them to leave this up. For those of us who've been in this town our entire lives and know this area pretty well, it's a good little nostalgic reminder. It's very sweet. I do like these neighborhoods over here quite a bit. This would be, we're kind of in the middle of 3 little neighborhoods butting up against each other. There's the Hamilton neighborhood over there where the park was that I started at today. There's the Bloomingdale neighborhood. That's a little further towards the center of the city. And then this one up here is the North Highlands neighborhood. Nice, quiet little place. And up there you can see the Kroger, backside of the Kroger over there. I might run up there to get a drink later. All right, back to the talk. Praise for what you do. I don't feel personally that because I work with children, I deserve any extra praise. However, I do believe that if you have given your life to your nation, to your country, and you are a member of our military, armed forces, irrespective of the wing, if you are a, what I call an emergency response person, say an ambulance driver, or first aid giver, work in an ER unit, things that keep people alive, jobs that, you know, put their lives on the line for us, police officers, firefighters. That I do think is special praise, because it takes a very, very unique person to get into that, knowing the risks involved with that. I don't have that. I just don't have that risk. Working in a school, despite what you might think from some news reports from around the country, I just don't fear what seems to be the running narrative. I won't get too heavily into that, but I think you know what I'm talking about here. Here we are again, Franklin School Park. Beautiful little place. I'm gonna head back to Hamilton Park. Get back on the loop. The thank you for your service line, I think it is appropriate. I think it's warranted. I know some feel differently. When a career becomes a matter of choice, I think people tend to dismiss what's involved with that. Well, if you choose to do it, then, well, it's on you. Well, sure. But I think that kind of tells me it means a little more. When you think about years ago, especially during, wartime, Korean War, perhaps the Vietnam War, I don't remember exactly. We have problems with the draft. We're taking young men and throwing them right into the battle. They had no choice. That's certainly something that they need to be thanked for. And in the very least, show them gratitude for what they've put up with and what they've done in the name of our country. And I'm not someone who tends to blow trumpets and beat drums for that sort of thing. But I think simple gratitude and appreciation is warranted and necessary. And if there's any point to this, it's the proportion of what you're doing to what the praise is. I think that's what's important. So when I hear from others that, after learning that I work with kids, small kids, in a special education sort of realm, they're happy, they give their appreciation and thanks, and they bring their presumptions about how hard it is, and I have to kind of quell those views a bit. There are challenges just like any other job, but it's not like I'm bending over backwards to get things done. It's just not that way. Again, if you are someone who doesn't like to work with kids, who's not very fond of children, in fact, you might have a lot of trouble, and I think that might be where some of the praise is coming from. The quote, well, I could never do that, unquote, viewpoint, which I even challenge. I think if you have a heart for people, if you have any sense of, or maybe a desire, in fact, to be a good facilitator of a subject or some sort of content that you care about. For me, I tend to gravitate towards math. That's kind of my thing. So I love teaching math. I love guiding those who need help with math. One of my adult students, I've given her freedom to contact me at any time with concerns and questions, and she'll give me pictures of her online platform that she uses. And very recently we've been talking a lot about the equation of a line, how to construct it, how to determine slope from a line on a graph on the coordinate grid. She's been having trouble with it, and that's where patience comes in. What might be pretty straightforward and simple to me might be terribly difficult for someone else. And I have to remember that. A good teacher, a good coach for those sort of subjects needs to remember that patience certainly is a virtue. You got to be able to withstand what you think is really easy, because that other person may think it's the hardest thing in the world. And think about your own life. I'm sure there's things that you do that are way more complicated in your mind than they need to be. And there's someone there who knows better, who could probably teach you something about that. And I think a good partnership is teacher and student. And I think if you can keep that honest, professional, and with a good amount of patience on both ends. Patience not only with that student, but the student having patience with himself. It's going to be a good partnership. And I think if you're the person out there who might not be working in education, but still believes that, you might consider going into education. Maybe you have. Maybe you have done that for a while. Maybe you had a short stint as a substitute teacher, or maybe some sort of a coach or a tutor. Tutoring is really important too. And kind of what goes with the praise and all the applauding, so to speak, for what you do. There's also the other end of it. When you have bad experiences, part of the praise that you get kind of comes with this presumption or implication that you're dealing with really bad things. It could be a population of students coming from a difficult background, therefore it makes it harder to teach. Okay, I can understand that. Maybe the school district is not so good. I'm not sure how they determine that. But maybe the presumption is that they're not too good, therefore it's harder to be a teacher or a tutor or a counselor or any sort of educator within that realm. Okay, I understand. I'm not sure how they determine that again. but the proportion should fit, what that person views of the job. Which is why it's easy for us who aren't in the military, who aren't in the armed forces, or a police officer, or first responder to say, man, you do a really difficult job. I appreciate what you do. Maybe those within that realm are just so used to it that it's not really a big deal anymore. Doesn't mean it's not a big deal, but to them it may not be. So the praise may not go over the way it's intended. There's somebody over there. Looked kind of sketchy, so I'm going to walk this way instead. Get up here back on the track, go around the baseball diamonds. And here I thought, dropping by when the sprinkles were coming out, I thought that would be a good idea. Maybe it was. I don't see a whole lot of people out here. There were a few playing pickleball. I think they've stopped. Word to the wise, if you are playing pickleball and it's sprinkling, lightly raining, don't. You're going to slip. You're going to hurt your knees. You're going to tear your calf. You're going to do a lot of things. It's not a good sport to play when it's wet. It's got to be dry. Seen a lot of people get hurt doing that. And I've slipped too. I've gone for balls. We've gotten just a light shower. And I move forward to get a drop shot or something, and my foot slips forward, and I'm partially doing the splits on the court. It's not good. These diamonds have always been here. It's not a good day for it now, but the weekends are really nice because you'll see a lot of kids playing and parents are out there cheering them on. It's a lot of fun. Sometimes I'll stop here and just kind of watch them. See how well they hit. See if I can see any home runs or anything like that. This neighborhood is pretty quiet. Some of these houses are really cute. I like that brick one. I love brick houses. I love quiet neighborhoods, brick houses, and virtually no dogs for miles. I just cannot stand dogs. More power to you if you do enjoy them. I prefer cats. They're quiet and they know when to leave you alone. You don't have to take them out. You don't have to pick up their poop. Oh, here's something cool. Old baseball. Yep, here's the other part of it. As it concerns praise, I've never really been good with it. It's easier for me to give it than to take it. When I say thank you for someone showing appreciation, I say it more as a formality than really, really feeling it. Because a lot of times I think I'd rather just be left alone. In my video about Violet, which I still think about from time to time, when here I am already getting emotional. When I think about the notebook, there's a little notebook journal that the kids gave. That is a great showing of simple appreciation. They took the time to do it. Yeah, there's a little bit of encouragement from the teachers and the staff, but it was upon them to write what they wanted to write. And I really appreciated that. I thought it was very nice. And though I don't know if I necessarily deserve that sort of appreciation, I definitely am thankful for it. Not all the kids wrote in the book. There were, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 different kids that wrote in my particular book. I'm sure there are more for other more popular staff members. I tend to be an oddball there at the school. But those who wrote, I really appreciated that. That's the sort of praise that I like, where it's not, oh, thank you for your service, but hey, you made me really happy. That goes miles. That's not something that I'm going to quickly find on a greeting card somewhere in a grocery store. This is something from the heart, and that always means more. And it's something that I can keep. It's something I can hold on to for a long time. That goes into the memory book for my school things, along with all the pictures and such. Because that hits right at the heart. That hits really at the core of why I'm even doing what I'm doing. It's not to get praise. It's just that that's a really good byproduct of the time I've spent in doing what is fulfilling to me. You know, as long as there's one kid out there, if there's a, you know, for this upcoming season, if there's another Violet out there whom I'm going to cross paths with and spend roughly 9 months with, and I can have impact, and they give me a note that says, hey, thanks for everything you've done. You've made me very happy. You've helped me when I've been down, that sort of thing. That's cherished. That goes right to where that squishy spot I have. But from those who don't work with kids, when they make presumptions about the job, when they say that, oh, it must be hard doing that. Oh, you know, I appreciate what you do because I know it can be tough working with children. I know it can be all those things. It's not that I don't appreciate that. It's just the impact is different. I think it says more about them than it does me. Because it's not that I'm necessarily doing anything special. It's just that the way I view my particular strengths, it took me a long time to figure it out. But even though I can be really impactful in a manufacturing industry, because I do like rules and procedures and 1-point lessons and lockout, tag out procedures and using proper personal protective equipment for the job at hand. And I appreciate how we handle materials, and I use safety data sheets to make sure we're doing the right thing with our chemicals. And I mean, that whole realm, I can do that. But it doesn't satisfy the way it does when I change those rules to a more interpersonal sort of situation. What are the positive behavioral interventions I can do? How can I connect with a kid in need? How can I help, you know, temper a furious mind? How can I be of assistance? What can I do to help? You know, that sort of thing. Once I figured that out, I had to make the change. There were a lot of sacrifices, but it's because, you know, my particular puzzle piece fits better in the realm of education than it does food manufacturing. Does that mean I'm more praiseworthy? No. It may just mean I figured myself out. If anything, I should praise myself. And feel thankful that I had a moment where I could have that epiphany and go, you know what? Maybe this isn't the realm for you. I don't know if you can tell, but the rain's getting a little heavier. You feel it on my fingers, see it on the tripod here. Guy's over there still hitting that tennis ball up against the wall. Probably bored out of his mind. I've been there. I get that. So what about you? How do you feel about praise? How do you feel about applause? How do you feel about the presumption that because you're working with kids, you're somehow doing a more special job than someone who may be working at a grocery store, or maybe they're doing something that doesn't have that sort of perceived importance behind it, which is weird because if you think about it, the social web that we live within, the commerce and the way things are interwoven together, you remove a bit of that and things start to crumble. You know, if you don't have those folks working in a grocery store, it becomes hard to acquire food. If you don't have the farmers out there, some people have very negative views of farmers. If you don't have them, we suddenly get very hungry very quick. People that work for the city, the water treatment centers, you walk by them. My goodness, when I walk by the one there at Eagle Marsh, oh, the smell, terrible. But there's someone there working to make sure that water is treated well so that we can drink it and use it, not get sick. Is there prestige behind that? No, but man, it's important. All the delivery people, I see delivery trucks all the time. This is an Amazon first society now. What would happen to society if the delivery people weren't there? Well, we reset technology too. You know, the days of the traveling milkman on his little bike. I think a simple form of appreciation is what really is at hand here. And the particular praise, I think, should be for those extremely unique jobs where lives are on the line, where major sacrifices are made every day. You know, sometimes I'll complain about my role, no matter what the job is, but then I need to remember, hey, there's someone right now who's dealing with a very difficult situation, perhaps violent or tense, and lives could be lost. And here I'm worrying about scheduling or the confusion around certain rules and procedures and all those things. Very small stresses by comparison. So I try to keep myself as humble as possible, remembering could be worse. It's hard to do, I get it, but could be worse. I don't know who's yelling. Somebody over there. So I think that's gonna be it for this video. I'm gonna take a break, maybe go get a drink or something. Let me know what you think. Email's open as always. Comments are always there. So until next time, have a good day. Stay out of the rain, and like me, take care. Bye-bye.